All right, we are in the city of Detroit, the grounds of historic Fort Wayne. Found this old Coast Guard boat, and then we stumbled across some pretty cool stuff here. So we're at
the Collections Resource Building for the Detroit Historical Society.
We're here with Dave Macaroni.
That's close enough. Marchioni.
There you go, Macaroni. It's all the same.
It's not the first time I've been called that.
Lots of cool stuff here, so we're going to take you through that. This is like the off, you would call it the, what, not on display collection?
It's our collections building. So
Okay.
museums display between 5 and 7% of what they actually own, and this is where everything lives that's not on display at our main museum.
So lots of cool stuff here, lots of crazy stuff here, so we'll take you through all that stuff. So thanks for watching, guys.
So I have 3 complete Cadillacs disassembled. And if you look through the window, you can see it still has all the shipping tags in it. It has all the build sheets in it. The interior is still covered in plastic. So it's essentially an NOS 88 Cadillac.
How much?
Ha! I was going for that easy.
And like, why is it on a plate, like mounted to a plate? Was it a display model or something?
This, when they shut down the facility, they rarely shut down factories where it's linear. So usually what happens is they come to an agreement and everything stops. So that's actually the body drop that would have picked this car off the skid and dropped it onto the chassis below. And we have the entire body drop located at our main museum. It's part of our display.
Good God, brand spanking new.
Yeah. Still got the wrap on the wheel, still got the covers on the seats, still got the cardboard on the floors.
But this is where it stopped at. The front end was never mounted to it.
Yep, it was never mounted to a chassis. So at the main, we have 3 of them lined up. We've got a white one, the white one here, a powder blue one, and a burgundy one. It is the cat daddy of Cadillac.
How cool would that be? Score that baby and put it together. Brand spanking new in
look,
2023.
There's a side of one of the Dodge Omnis or something too.
Yeah,
is
what
that
we
an
have,
Omni?
it's on the other side of the Cadillac, is the fixture. It was one of the first robotic welding fixtures. So that's the fixture, that's the machine, and then the half an Omni in the back is the welding fixture.
Gotcha.
So if you see where it's got the spots that are red, that's where the welder teaches the welder learns to touch those spots for welding.
Gotcha.
So that's where it mounts and then it taps on either side.
And that's the welder right there on the other side of the Cadillac?
That's out of Chrysler's Jefferson Assembly when they retooled. This is a pretty significant piece of history as a robot automotive production. If you'd like to have it, we'd like to donate it. So the goal is, in preserving Detroit's history, to keep as many of these things around as we can. Yeah, capstan. Unfortunately, I'm the automotive guy, not the maritime guy, so my answer for that kind of stuff is came off a boat. Green presents out
There you go. Someday that'll be our magazines. They'll be donating them to some historical museum. Like on the other side, you can see it's some yachting magazine.
There's an old hair curler. That's the upright machine that you see in front of you there.
Whoa.
That's a hair curler?
Whoa.
It is.
Well, you just stuck your head in there and then
Well,
just
see the
started
clips on the
spinning?
bottom of it? So that would be, you'd roll those into your hair.
Oh, it's a braider.
Well, it's for curl.
Huh.
Again, I don't have a hair conducive to that, so.
Bobby, we fire that thing up.
Try it out. Think it'll work?
That thing's gonna leave a mark, I promise you that.
Thing looks pretty aggressive.
Maybe we need one of these at work.
Suggestion box.
Yeah. Probably need to be bigger.
The Cadillac station wagon, we have 2 of these actually.
Cadillac station.
Arguably, these are the only 2 Cadillac station wagons ever produced by Cadillac. So most of the station wagons you see are built by coach builders. So anybody that builds a hearse, like a Hess and Eistadt or Miller Meteor, you can order a station wagon version of a Cadillac, but it has to be coach built. These were built by the employees of General Motors at Clark Street when they were debating closing the plant. So they wanted to, the UAW wanted to show the brass at GM that there was something else they could build at the plant that would be viable that people would buy. So they built 2 station wagons, a hearse, and a limousine, all 4 of which we have in the collection. And the interesting thing, if you know station wagons, usually the rear seats are pretty plain. The rear seats in this are full Cadillac. They're diamond tufted. They've got Cadillac seat belts.
Is that one there a 6-door?
Yeah. We've got a 6-door and a hearse.
Whoa.
But again, you got to believe they would have sold. And it's interesting because if you look at the other one is open too. So if you look at the taillights on this one, the taillights on the other one are different.
Chain drive.
That's actually the Osceola. So that is the first closed cab Cadillac ever produced. And it was owned by Henry Leland, who was the president of GM and a bunch of other automotive companies at that time. He wanted to build a closed cabin car to show that it would be more accessible for motoring if you could be out of the rain. You think about most cars at this point, and they're open cars. So this one's got curved glass. All the coach work is done by Fred Fisher, who is the uncle of the Fisher brothers from the Fisher family, from Fisher Body.
And cozy.
Yeah, people were small. Leland was 6 foot tall, and at his point at the turn of the century, the average male was like 5'4". The average female was 5 foot. So there are pictures of him in this car with his top hat where he's fully as tall as the car is. Multi-fuel basically means it'll run on just about anything that'll burn. Gas, kerosene, diesel, oil, any unrefined fuel.
Amazing.
Belt drive. You see the counterweight for the crankcase. Yeah. So you get
Look at the flywheel.
Yeah, you get that flywheel spinning, and you see the funny thing is it's machined. You can see that it's drilled, so it's been drilled to balance it for weight.
Pretty good sized chain on that thing.
Oh yeah, well, you got to put the power down, man. I shouldn't have to tell you
when
that.
This boy's hooking and riding a wheelie. You better hang on.
Yeah. You get all 3 to 7 of those horsepower in one position, buddy. You got yourself a race.
Maybe gonna cost you there.
Yeah, the airfoils are neat cars.
Cool City of Detroit sticker.
Yeah, 60s era. But these were small enough. They used these in Jeeps a lot for snowplows because they're small enough to go on sidewalks. So they would put a short plow on them and throw them on the sidewalk, and that's how they plow sidewalks downtown. A stagecoach from the turn of the century, a travel trailer, and a bottom train that's probably about 17. These Jeeps are actually ready to go out. So the yellow one and the green one are Korea War era.
He's going to tell us what that is.
Fire ordnance. They closed the fire museum in Ypsi, and we ended up with a lot of engines. This one's an original Detroit engine. These are the V12, two plug per cylinder. So they're designed to run like 3,000 RPM and make almost no horsepower and a ton of torque. So it's all a bottom end engine because it powers the engine and the pump. The ball on top of it is like a compression, so it allows it to have a little bit of air caught in it, so it doesn't lock the pump. But they still, if you go to like an antique fire show, which they do pretty regularly, they'll dump a line in a pond and pump with these things, and the water they move is just incredible. But you figure it's got that big V60, big V12 pushing all that water, so you engage the PTO and throttle it up and just push it as hard as you want water to come out of it. And these were all coach built. This is an Aaron's Fox. So you ordered one, you told them what they wanted, and they built it to your criteria. This wasn't, it wasn't like there was 20 of them sitting on a lot.
Like diesel powered jet or something.
Yeah. Old single end, small trash shells. So my grandfather was a
So now
fire.
we're all talking the boat.
Yeah.
It's like Pablo's a big talk right now. Which is
Have the Scripps Group family who was media. Then they had newspapers, now they have TV stations. But most of this stuff is donated. So we got these two from Ford, the Bourdonnais Cobra and the Cougar 2. The Ford decided they wanted a running and driving show car, so they actually went and bought Shelby Cobras. So you think about Shelby in '62, this is as they're just starting to buy bodies from Bristol and put Ford motors in Cobras, they ordered these two cars as running chassis. And if you look at the board on that one, you can see that it's got a picture of just what DST took all the bodywork and everything off of it, and then they built these two cars. The Bourdonnais, the Cobra, basically was a design car, so it never really got out of the Dearborn Development Center. The Cougar 2 was on the dais when they debuted the Mustang in '64. Again, they were supposed to be running and driving. When they got through with design, they pulled the interior so far forward that you couldn't get the heads on the engine. So both of them have blocks with no heads, basically there for weight. I had the same one. I built that car so much. So I had that car in Autorama years, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Just had a leather strap attached to the bottom of the window.
That's the diagram of it.
Yeah.
You can see it there.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, you could do. Oh my god.
Oh,
it
it
works.
Look at this. Yeah, that's a cool door.
So it's kind of Corvette-y.
So the Corvette, this car, and the Jaguar 2x2, which had that same back, are all literally within a couple months of each other. So as is typically the case, everything old is new again. Everybody has the same kind of idea at the same time.
Yeah, it's got like a Jag steering wheel where it's all flat.
It's an original Cobra steering wheel, which is interesting because that one, when we got it, it shows in the pictures that it had an original Cobra flat wheel, and when we got it, it had like a plastic 70s LTD steering wheel.
Oh.
So when it sat, somebody snagged it, which is not uncommon.
Yeah.
So what's special about that Fiero?
It's a single-digit VIN number. I believe it's 6.
Gotcha.
So that would have been one of the press cars. It would have been one of the ones that they gave to the media to drive. It ended up at GM's archive, and then they donated it here.
And the same thing with Cadillac, the Cadillac.
The Cadillac was a gentleman that donated a bunch of really high-end Packard stuff to us. That was
This
part of it.
Kaiser?
So we got all this cool.
This has got to be a Kaiser. What does it say?
Is that because I'm sure on display at some museum is better than staying here and help.
Right. I mean, I like having them here, but they don't serve any purpose if I'm sitting.
Right.
So these two are stout Scarabs. They made a total of 6. The one here is what the actual production vehicle looked like in '35. Mr. Stout was an engineer, and his patent with Ford was for the tri-motor. So the Ford tri-motor aircraft was where Stout made his money. He became friends with Henry Ford, and there was a group of them that kind of were futurists and always looking for a better way to go about things. So these actually have a V860 Ford in the back. So it's rear engine, so it's got nothing that comes through the passenger compartment, so it's got a flat floor. In the seats, other than the driver's seat, all move. So they're on runners like a chair, and you can turn them around. There's a table that goes on the passenger side wall, the driver's side wall, that moves back and forth. So you could put 4 people around the table. But if you look at it, it's a Scarab. It looks like a Scarab.
This would be better with your all-wheel drive than even
This would
that
be cool.
Dodge van.
Supposedly there's one of them left out there. They made a total of 6. There's one of them that keeps being reported at a junkyard in Florida. So this car actually belonged to the P.K. Wrigley family of Wrigley Field and Wrigley Chewing Gum. When they had an interest in Stout, and when they folded the company, they gave him this vehicle rather than cashing him out. And they took it to Arizona and used it on their family property in Arizona for years. When Mr. Stout was getting his affairs in order and was going to donate a bunch of things here, he convinced the family to donate it to us at the same time at all of his other cars. Dual side mounts. Then if you look at the side of it, that is a 3-passenger sport coupe.
You see how the grill opens and closes for
Yeah.
winter and summer?
Waterfall grill with a winter nose on it.
Yeah.
Big straight 8. Made, again, not a lot of horsepower, but a lot of torque.
Oh, so that's before you put cardboard over the grill?
Yeah, you just closed it in the winter.
Before you
and
stuff
opened it in the
newspaper in
summer.
it. We looked at the other cycle car earlier. This is another version of the cycle car. This is the same family, Scripps Booth. This is called Da Vinci Pup.
Down there.
4-cylinder, and so if you look at it, the driving position's at the rear, because you think about how narrow and long the car is. If you put all the weight in front of it, as soon as you go to turn in, it's going to nose over. So as soon as you turn in, it's going over. So the passenger sits in front of you. They have clocked this vehicle on Lake St. Clair at 96 miles an hour with mechanical brakes and twin belt drive.
Look at the weird little wheel.
That's the belt, that's the drive.
Yeah.
So imagine running 96 miles an hour.
That belt flying.
Yep.
I just like the little
And
miniature
then all you have to
spoke
stop
wheel.
is basically a compressed piece of coal, horsehair, and tar that the brake pads were at that point to mechanically stop it. More Cadillac parts from our 3 Cadillac exploded sedans.
Oh, dude, the caravan.
Gotta have one. The
Where's
funny thing
Brian?
is, Greenfield Village has one too. We were at the Henry Ford and they have one. Theirs isn't a town and country. Ours is a town and country. And that is actually a special order 4-speed. So it's a 4-speed stick, and the stick is, like the old Ratfig days where the stick is about 1.5 feet tall. Because you think of the seating position in a minivan, so it's got to be high enough where you can get it without leaning over for it. Factory order.
The first thing I see is the front end from the family truckster.
That's what I was thinking too, with the 4 lights on it.
Yeah.
Back in an era when the city was bankrupt, my dad was a Detroit cop, my grandfather was a firefighter, and they were laying off people from both of those organizations because we were in bankruptcy. The mayor decided he needed a limousine. That one is the same one that Ronald Reagan had. So in the $1980, that was a $1.5 million limousine. It has a bomb plate underneath it. It has 16-ply wheels. It's had what we call colloquially party store glass. So it's the old school bulletproof glass. It's like 3 inches thick.
Is that why it's like?
That's why it's crazed, because that glass just isn't long-term sustainable. And then, as if that weren't enough, he bought a second one so that when he was out, they could run 2 around the city and nobody knew where he was. Pontiac Firebird convertible, one of 3. Basically, it's an engineering prototype from Hans Proctor's ASC, American Sunroof Corporation. They built
I could recognize the ASC back end. The way they did those.
Yeah, it's got that same low wing that was the Cat Daddy back in the 80s and 90s.
So that was a prototype outside of Pontiac, right?
Right.
Because the ASC deal
Heinz
or whatever.
did them. They bought, and I think it's funny because they did a bunch of the Camaros, if you recall. They made the Camaro convertibles. I don't know why the Firebird didn't stick. It should have a line. It doesn't have a line now, but it's got a flex line that runs to them. You can push it down on it and pressurize it. The Sayer craft behind it is a nationally recognized champion hydroplane in its class. It's the old Kneelers, where you would actually sit on that thing on your knees and pulled into the steering wheel, going way faster on the water than I would be comfortable.
So what's the DL mean on the Pacer?
It's an option package.
Gotcha. Because we had a '77 Pacer when I was a kid. My dad bought one, and called the Fishbowl. It was like the long one with the second set of windows in the back. It was the wagon, but it had.
This one it's Pacer Job 1, so it's car 0001. And it was owned by Dick Teague, who was the guy that styled the Pacer, in addition to the Javelin and the Rambler and all the other AMC products of that era. But it's loaded up. It's got road wheels. It's reportedly the only one to have the moonroof. It's got a roof rack, the brocade interior. It's got an 8-track.
It's got a moonroof and a roof.
You know it. Yeah. So those would have been, if you remember the front-wheel drive car of that era.
Oh, the Eldorado?
Yeah, those are from the front-wheel drive car of that era. The ones in the other car are from the rear-wheel.
You need some 6-bit, Tom.
You know, I didn't get a pizza. I didn't see any T-shirts. I didn't get any cleaning supplies.
Look at the whole front end's all pinched and weird.
So this car is what they call a bridge car. So they built this car to transition from the Mustang 1 to the production Mustang. So if you look at it,
I don't even know the Mustang one.
it was literally from maybe the front of the door to the tail panel. Little car. It was a prototype. So they took it out. They got a lot of good press from it. But then what they were building didn't look anything like what they were showing people in the Mustang. So this car it's the bridge.
So is that a removable hard top? Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So allegedly, and the great thing about being in Detroit is you get all the urban lore on these cars. So when this car went into the studio where they look at the executives approve before they go into production, allegedly they showed it to them and they went, it was a hardtop, and they went, why are we building hardtop show cars? Nobody wants hardtop show cars. So they literally took it back to styling and knocked the roof off of it. If you look, the windshield's raked. So the windshield's back a couple degrees. The top is chopped about 4 degrees. And like you said, it's got 4 clasps on it, and it lifts completely off the car. So essentially it's a roadster other than the fact it's got glass windows.
So is there headroom in that, the way it's chopped? Or no?
I have sat in it, and it is not super roomy. But like anything that's chopped, the more important thing is it looks cool.
But what's weird is that it was from the factory, they were making it as a prototype.
Well, they knew they weren't going to build this. So this is basically another show car that looks more Mustang than the one that they were showing people initially.
Gotcha. Just look at that rake for those wing windows.
Yeah. And like I said, if you look at the windshield from the side, it's got a heavy pitch to it.
Right. Look at the rearview mirror down low.
Yeah, that was very early 60s. And then if you look at the interior, basically it's like a plastic bucket. So if you look into the floor pan, it's got floor mats that snap into it like a Jeep. But the rest of that is one piece.
So this is one of those ones that you can't even dream what the value of this thing probably is.
And actually, if you look at the horse in between the rear seats, That is the only time that horse ever appears. See how it's a 3/4 view? So they were obviously they were checking things out and seeing what they liked. And it's funny because it looks super awkward if you look at it because you're so used to looking at the one that's on the front of the car. And this is the first appearance of the Mustang that we know on the front of the Mustang. Yeah, I mean,
It chipped away. I fixed it up. I got close.
She's good. She's good. She's
you know, it's 5 years older than me, and I don't feel that pretty. So
she's a 10-footer.
Better original than restored. The restoration of something like this would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then arguably it's not original.
I was going to say you wouldn't want to restore.
No, I think it's got way more character the way it's.
Look at the freaking cast outriggers.
It's a T. That's radiator. That's all radiator.
Yep, first liquid cooled V8 produced in Detroit. 1913.
Hey, your big wheel bagger sucks. Look at this one. Oh my god.
Dang.
You
It's like they
this one
took a
better,
train.
Allison?
It's like they took a train
You like
and
this one
said,
better than Tom's bagger? She says yeah. Look at them filler caps for the gas, I guess.
Yeah, well, you
Gas
think
and
so.
oil.
It's essentially when you stop, the downriggers are down.
Yeah.
Then as you come up to speed, you crank the downriggers up, and it functions as a motorcycle. I mean, recovery equipment. You're looking at it.
I was gonna say there's
It's the sum total of production right
Dude,
here.
it's a freaking Springer too.
Yeah,
yeah, look at that spring.
yeah, like the old Indians.
It's a elliptical, quarter elliptical kind of setup.
The Scripps booth by AutoGo Super Sport.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Springer. Holy shit. What the hell?
What is it, a V12?
What the hell? What the hell are these? You must
Those are-
put fluid in them
No, those
to
are
get
the,
it started.
Those are for the compression. Like,
No,
what do they
you
call
must-
those? Compression poppers?
Those are for water purge.
Oh, that's water.
Again, this first water-cooled V8 produced.
Oh my god.
So they have no idea how to purge a system. You know, they didn't have an airlift like we have now. So basically, you force water. You know, like when I was a kid and you had big blocks, you'd put a hose in the radiator and run them until it burped.
Yeah.
And then shut everything down and start over again.
So it's a 16, a V16?
It's an 8,
Oh.
but it's 2 plugs per.
I was looking for power.
Oh, so it's a Hemi.
Power.
So it's a Hemi.
It's a Hemi.
It's a Hemi.
Be an interesting one to launch for sure.
Is this like the first? What year was this?
1913.
Oh, so Harley Springers were sooner than that.
Well, and if you look at the motorcycles before that, that Springer suspension existed before this. That wasn't new technology.
Not quite that crazy with the quarter elliptic.
That's
kinda-
going for it. I'll say that.
There's some- whew.
That is definitely going for it. So they built this at Cranbrook, which is up off Woodward, and we have pictures of this in the era downtown. So somehow it got from out there to downtown Detroit. So they drove it. We know they drove it. I would love to have some kind of black and white silent footage of this thing ripping down Woodward. I think it'd be hysterical. But just the geometry of getting this thing to run for any amount of time is spectacular.
All right, Bobby's got a new look going, but the tour today, or the tour yesterday, because this is a wrap up on yesterday's video, what'd you guys think of the museum?
It's pretty cool. I interacted with the tour guide a lot.
He's a cool guy.
And Bobby had to keep snapping his fingers to make sure that he wasn't putting stuff in his pockets.
Right.
There were some things Bobby was trying to leave with, but
There's some people that go there and try and steal stuff because
Yep.
there's a lot of cool stuff.
Bob tried to fit in the motorcycle in his pocket.
But like
it didn't fit.
the penny farthing bike, I couldn't get in my pocket, so that would have
Yeah.
been a tough call.
But amazing stuff, and it's crazy, like we talked about yesterday, whatever, after the case, that you never know what's hiding in some building somewhere in who
That
knows
was-
where.
That
And
was a
like,
crazy building. and
literally, you would
shitty
never
spot.
expect what was in there. Like, even when we pulled up, we never would have expected what was in there. We actually thought we were at the wrong spot. But cool stuff. But the gasser giveaway is still going on, so whatever. Go buy your merch. Get entered to win the 50 cent. Oh, don't get rid of the pork
Come on,
chops,
man.
Bobby.
It's kind of irritating. It's weird feeling.
Yeah, but we were hoping everybody just thought that you
You
moved
do
to
it.
pork chops.
You
Mine
do
don't do that.
Come
so.
on.
Mine can barely make a bigger
Here,
mustache.
split it like Yosemite Sam. Just do that.
We do have Sax car in the house, so if you watched any of Steve's videos, then you know about the motor upgrade and everything. So he comes to his favorite fabricator, Bobby. to take care of it because he doesn't want anybody else touching the car. Bob did build this car when he worked at Skinny Kids, so pretty much everything, right?
I would say 99% of the car. Well, no, Billy Gilsbach did the turbo stuff on it.
Which is all gone now because
It's
now
going to
we
be
do
gone
turbo
now. Yeah,
stuff.
it will
So,
be gone now. But yes, Billy did the turbo stuff. I did the rest.
Aiden, what was your favorite thing in the museum yesterday?
Motorcycle's pretty cool.
The motorcycle. So
That
Bobby,
was crazy as hell.
Was it the motorcycle
The
or
motorcycle
bicycle?
definitely
So-
won.
radiator. So be cool. I
Just-
know you're probably watching this video. We need one of those radiators like that. We're going to put that in something. Can you just whip that out as quick as you whip out the other radiators that we need? But
Yeah, that's nuts.
so that's what we got.
That was
Some gas or
perfect.
giveaway, and we'll get you
That was-
updates on this because we're trying to take that racing next week. It did debut, so that was all good. It runs and drives and just needs tweaked. So, and hopefully that'll be on the table next video, and Bobby will maybe start
turned
looking at
into
the
it.
list. I mean, there's freaking
I looked at the list, and
Yeah, it's
I'm
bad.
just going to start tearing through it.
tearing through it. Tearing through it. Bobby said 3 days to be done.
I didn't say that, but I will hustle. My man wants to make a race, so
There you go. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll get you updates next video.